There was something about the 1970s. Maybe it was the way AM radio played all day in the kitchen. Maybe it was how every song seemed to mean something deeper than the words themselves. You remember sitting in the backseat of your parents' car when a certain song would come on, and suddenly everything felt heavier. Those melodies that made your throat tight. The ones that forced you to look out the window so nobody would see. These songs didn't just play in the background. They became part of who you were. And if you grew up in the 1970s, these songs made you cry. Number 10. Alone Again Naturally by Gilbert O'Sullivan, 1972.
Alone again, naturally.
The thing about Alone Again Naturally was how cheerful it sounded at first. The melody was almost bouncy. Gilbert O'Sullivan's voice was light, almost whimsical. You might have been humming along before the words actually registered, and then you heard what he was actually saying.
Think that only yesterday I was cheerful, bright and gay.
Left standing at the altar. His fiancée just walked away. The guests whispering behind their hands. The absolute humiliation of being abandoned in front of everyone you know. He was alone again. Naturally, but the song didn't stop there. O'Sullivan took you deeper. He remembered when his father died, how he cried without shame. Then his mother died too, likely from a broken heart after losing her husband. The loneliness kept stacking, one loss on top of another.
Alone again, naturally.
The most unsettling part was how casually he mentioned throwing himself off a tower. The way he sang it made it sound almost reasonable, like he was discussing what to have for lunch. That contrast between the bright melody and the dark words created something that stuck in your chest.
It seems to me that there are more hearts broken in the world.
The acoustic guitar solo in the middle was the only moment where the music matched the weight of the story. For those few seconds, you could feel the heaviness he'd been hiding behind that cheerful facade. The song spent 6 weeks at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1972. Millions of people were listening to a man contemplate suicide set to music you could almost dance to. It was the kind of song that made you sit very still when it came on the radio, suddenly aware of how fragile everything was.
Left unattended, what do we do?
Parents would sometimes change the station when it came on, not wanting their children to hear about such dark topics, but teenagers understood it perfectly. They knew that feeling of being completely alone even when surrounded by people.
Alone again, naturally.
Number 9. Seasons in the Sun by Terry Jacks, 1974.
We had joy, we had fun, we had seasons in the sun.
Terry Jacks took a Belgian song from the 1961 and turned it into one of the most devastating hits of the decade. The original was about a dying man saying goodbye to his loved ones. Jacks kept that essence, but made it hit closer to home.
Goodbye, my friend, it's hard to die.
Goodbye to a trusted friend. Goodbye to his father. Goodbye to his wife. Each verse was another person he'd never see again. The singer was dying, and these were his final words.
Goodbye to you, my trusted friend.
What made it worse was the production. The backing vocals were almost cheerful. Children's voices sang along during parts of it. There was something profoundly wrong about hearing what sounded like a celebration while someone said their last goodbyes. The arrangement created this strange disconnect. The music wanted you to feel uplifted, but the words were telling you someone was dying. Your brain couldn't quite reconcile the two, and that tension made the song unforgettable.
We had joy, we had fun, we had seasons in the sun.
The song became massive. It topped charts in 11 countries. It spent 3 weeks at number 1 in America, and everyone who heard it felt that strange combination of sadness and beauty that only certain songs can create.
But the stars we could reach were just starfish on the beach.
Radio stations received calls from people saying it was too sad to play during the day. Some stations actually stopped playing it during morning drive time because too many listeners complained it was making them cry on their way to work. But they kept playing it anyway because sometimes you need to feel something that deep, even if it hurts. The song became the go-to choice for memorials and funerals throughout the decade. Hearing it meant someone you knew was saying goodbye.
We had joy, we had fun, we had seasons in the sun.
Number 8, Without You by Harry Nilsson, 1971.
And
Badfinger wrote Without You first, but Harry Nilsson's version became the definitive one. His voice took the song to places that felt almost unbearable. The song was about losing love and realizing you can't survive without it. Not in a poetic way, in a literal way. Life loses meaning. Everything becomes impossible. The pain isn't something you can wait out or get over. It just is. Nilsson's vocal performance was extraordinary. He started quiet, almost conversational. Then he built and built until he was practically screaming at the end. You could hear him breaking apart in real time. The orchestra swelled behind him, making everything feel even more desperate. Every instrument seemed to be crying along with him. The strings ached. The piano pounded. Even the production felt like it was barely holding itself together. By the time he reached that final chorus, it felt like the whole world was collapsing. The song went to #1 in the United States. It won a Grammy, and it became one of those songs that you couldn't listen to if you were already feeling fragile. It would push you right over the edge. People would request it on radio dedications after breakups. DJs would warn listeners that a sad one was coming up. You'd hear it at the grocery store and suddenly need to leave your cart and walk outside for a minute. Years later, Nilsson said he never really liked performing it because it took so much out of him emotionally every single time. That kind of raw feeling doesn't just turn off when the song ends. He carried it with him long after the last note faded. Number 7, Fire and Rain by James Taylor, 1970.
I've seen fire and I've seen rain.
James Taylor had one of the warmest, most comforting voices in music, which made Fire and Rain even more heartbreaking when you understood what he was singing about. The first verse was about Suzanne, a friend he met in a psychiatric hospital. They had both been there for treatment. After Taylor left to pursue music in London, Suzanne died. Nobody told him for months because they didn't want to interrupt his work. When he finally found out, he'd already missed the funeral, missed the chance to say goodbye.
I've seen sunny days that I thought would never end.
The second verse dealt with his heroin addiction, the lonely times when he couldn't find a friend, the desperate attempts to get clean, the isolation of withdrawal and recovery. The third verse was about his band falling apart due to various members' drug problems. His dreams seemed dead. Everything he'd worked for felt like it was crumbling.
My body's aching and my time is at hand.
Taylor sang all of this with a voice that sounded like he was trying very hard not to completely fall apart. That control made it somehow sadder. You could feel him holding himself together through sheer will. The guitar work was gentle, almost pastoral. It created this false sense of peace that made the lyrics cut even deeper. Beautiful music carrying unbearably sad words. That combination was devastating.
Oh, I've seen fire and I've seen rain.
The song became a massive hit and launched Taylor's career, but it was essentially a man cataloging death, addiction, and failure in 3 verses. Every time it played on the radio, someone somewhere was probably crying along with it. The song became a touchstone for anyone dealing with loss or addiction. It told them they weren't alone in their struggle. Sometimes just knowing someone else understood made all the difference.
I've seen fire and I've seen rain.
Number 6, Operator by Jim Croce, 1972.
Operator, well, could you help me place this call?
Operator was a conversation with a telephone operator. The narrator was trying to call his ex-girlfriend. He wanted to check on her, make sure she was okay, maybe hear her voice one more time, but he couldn't go through with it. He told the operator not to bother trying. His old friend was the man she left him for. They'd stolen each other's dreams, gotten what they both wanted. He was the one left with nothing.
But that's not the way it feels.
Jim Croce's voice was gentle and resigned. There wasn't anger in it, just exhaustion, just the weight of knowing you've lost and there's nothing you can do about it. The finger-picking guitar pattern sounded like someone trying to hold a conversation while their heart was breaking. The beauty of the song was in what it didn't say, all the hurt living in the spaces between words. The operator on the other end never responding. The call that never got made. The closure that never happened.
Operator, well, could you help me place this call?
The song climbed to number 17 on the charts in 1972. What nobody knew while they were listening was that Croce would be dead the next year. He died in a plane crash at 30 years old, right when his career was taking off.
No one there I really wanted to talk to.
After his death, Operator took on new meaning. Suddenly, it wasn't just about a lost love. It was about time running out, about calls that would never be made, about all the words that would remain unsaid forever. People who'd heard it before his death couldn't hear it the same way again. Every line became a reminder that life ends without warning, that you don't always get another chance.
And give me the number if you can't find it, so I can.
Number 5. The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald by Gordon Lightfoot, 1976. On November 10, 1975, a freighter called the Edmund Fitzgerald sank in Lake Superior during a storm. All 29 crew members died. It was a maritime disaster that shocked the region. Gordon Lightfoot read about it in Newsweek and immediately felt compelled to write about it. He crafted the song like a folk ballad, an old tale passed down through generations. Except this wasn't folklore. This had just happened. The families were still grieving.
Every man knew as the captain did too, 'twas the witch of...
The song was haunting. Lightfoot's voice was somber as he described the ship's final journey. The waves, the wind. The moment when the lights went out and the Edmund Fitzgerald disappeared beneath the surface, 29 men gone in an instant. The detail in the song made it feel real. You could picture the cook coming on deck saying it was too rough to feed anyone, the captain wiring that water was coming in, the lights going out. Each verse took you closer to the inevitable ending everyone already knew was coming.
Captain wired in, he had water coming in, and the good shipping.
What made it particularly eerie was that Lightfoot wrote it before anyone could examine the wreckage. He was imagining those final moments based on reports and speculation. Later investigations would reveal he'd captured the tragedy with remarkable accuracy. The song went to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. It became one of the biggest hits of 1976. But it was also a memorial. Every time it played, people were remembering real men who went to work one day and never came home.
Anyone know where the love of God goes when the waves turn in?
Some family members of the crew appreciated that their loved ones were being honored, that the story wasn't being forgotten, that these 29 men would be remembered not just as statistics, but as people. Others found it painful to hear their tragedy turned into a pop song. The debate continues even now, decades later. The song ensured that the Edmund Fitzgerald would never be forgotten. Schools in the Great Lakes region taught students about it. The ship became part of regional history. And every November 10th, people would remember those 29 crew members.
Lake Huron rolls, Superior sings in the rooms of her...
Number 4. Cats in the Cradle by Harry Chapin, 1974.
The cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon. Little boy blue.
Cats in the Cradle was Harry Chapin's only number 1 hit. His wife Sandy wrote the original poem after hearing a country song that reminded her of her first husband's relationship with his father. She showed it to Harry as a warning when he was on the road too much.
The cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon. Little boy blue.
The song told a simple story. A father too busy with work to spend time with his son. The child grows up and suddenly the roles reverse. Now the son is too busy for his aging father. The father realizes his son turned out exactly like him. What made the song absolutely devastating was how universal it was. Every parent who'd ever missed a school play recognized themselves. Every adult who'd ever been too busy to visit their parents saw their own life reflected back.
When you're coming home, Dad, I don't know when, but we'll get together then.
Harry Chapin himself struggled with the same issue. His own father had been a jazz drummer, always on the road, never around. Now Harry was a performer, constantly touring, fighting for social causes, rarely home. He was repeating the pattern he'd sworn to break.
You know we'll have a good time then.
The song became a cautionary tale. It played at graduations, Father's Day events, and family gatherings. It made people uncomfortable because it hit too close to home. In 1981, Harry Chapin died in a car accident on a New York highway. He was only 38 years old. His son Joshua was 7. The warning in the song had become tragically prophetic.
And the cat's in the cradle and a silver spoon. Little boy.
Number 3. Shannon by Henry Gross, 1976. Shannon sounded like a love song. The melody was wistful. Henry Gross sang it with tenderness and longing. For years, people assumed it was about a lost romance. Maybe a girlfriend who moved away. Maybe a relationship that didn't work out. Nobody realized Shannon was a dog. Carl Wilson of the Beach Boys had an Irish setter named Shannon. That dog had been his constant companion during some of the Beach Boys' most difficult years when Brian Wilson's mental health issues nearly destroyed the band. Shannon was there through all of it. In 1975, Shannon died. Carl was devastated. He grieved like he'd lost a family member. Henry Gross heard about Carl's loss and sat down to write a tribute, but he wrote it ambiguously enough that it could be interpreted any way you wanted. When it became a hit, reaching number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100, radio DJs never mentioned it was about a dog. People cry to that song, thinking about lost lovers, deceased grandparents, friends who'd moved away. They were projecting their own losses onto those vague lyrics, and the song worked just as well for whatever they needed it to mean. Carl Wilson loved it. He reportedly cried when he first heard it. The song became a public memorial to a very private loss, and to this day, many people still don't know the real Shannon. Number 2, One Less Bell to Answer, by The Fifth Dimension, 1970. The Fifth Dimension were known for upbeat, optimistic songs. Then they released One Less Bell to Answer, and everything changed. The song was written by Burt Bacharach and Hal David, masters of creating emotional devastation through simple language. The premise was straightforward. Someone has left. Now there's one less bell to answer, one less egg to fry, one less person to wake up for. Marilyn McCoo's vocal performance was extraordinary. Her voice was controlled, but you could hear the grief underneath. She wasn't crying. She wasn't screaming. She was just stating facts about her new reality, and that restraint made it even more heartbreaking. The song went to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1970. It stayed on the charts for months, and it became the song people played when they needed to process loss of any kind. A breakup, a death, a friendship that ended. What made it so powerful was its simplicity. It wasn't about grand gestures or dramatic confrontations. It was about the small daily reminders that someone is gone. The empty chair, the silent phone, the routine that doesn't need to happen anymore. Those tiny absences add up until they become unbearable. Number 1, Taxi by Harry Chapin, 1972. Taxi was Harry Chapin's breakthrough hit. It was longer than most radio songs, clocking in at over 6 minutes. But radio stations played it anyway because the story was too good to cut. The narrator is a taxi driver working a late-night shift. He picks up a passenger who turns out to be his ex-girlfriend from years ago. They talk as he drives her home. Both their lives turned out differently than they'd planned.
Oh, I've got something inside me.
She was going to be an actress. Instead, she married a wealthy man. She has money now, but you can tell she's not happy. The driver was going to be a pilot. Instead, he's driving a taxi. He's not bitter exactly, just tired. They recognize what they gave up. The dreams they abandoned, the life they could have had together. There's a moment when she tips him generously, probably more than the fare cost. It's an acknowledgement of everything they lost. Then she's gone.
Then she handed me $20 for a $2.50 fare, she said.
The song hit number 24 on the charts, but its impact was much bigger than that. Chapin performed it on The Tonight Show, and the response was so overwhelming that Johnny Carson brought him back the next night to perform it again.
And she said, "How are you, Harry?"
In 1980, Chapin even wrote a sequel called Sequel, where he revisits the characters. The taxi driver has become successful. He finds out his ex-girlfriend left her rich husband and is now alone. They have a second chance, but by then, the damage is done. They're different people. Taxi made you think about all the paths you didn't take, all the people you used to be, all the versions of your life that might have happened but didn't. That kind of regret doesn't go away.
Oh, got something inside me.
These songs weren't just entertainment. They were mirrors held up to real life. They acknowledged that things hurt, that people leave, that time runs out, that dreams don't always come true. If you grew up in the 1970s, you heard these songs during some of the most formative years of your life. Maybe you were in the back of your parents' car when Cats in the Cradle came on, and you saw your dad's jaw tighten. Maybe you were at a school dance when Without You played and someone left crying. Maybe you were alone in your room when Fire and Rain made you understand that sadness could be beautiful. These songs gave you permission to feel. They told you it was okay to hurt. They made you realize everyone else was hurting too. And sometimes knowing you weren't alone in your sadness made it just a little bit easier to carry. The 1970s had plenty of happy music. Disco made people dance. Rock made people feel alive, but these songs made people cry. And sometimes that's exactly what you needed. If these songs brought back memories, hit that like button and subscribe for more trips down memory lane. Let us know in the comments which 70s song hit you the hardest and whether you can still listen to it today without getting emotional. Thanks for watching.